We are in the middle of Shmuel Aleph Perek Chafei, chapter 25, which is really David and Avigail. David meets this amazing woman named Avigail, who we are going to get to know a little bit more. Avigail has a husband named Naval, Kishmo Kenhu. He was not a good guy, and that is saying it nicely. And what happens with him is that David's men are watching his stuff, and he's making a huge party in the shadow. He's making a huge party in the shadow of Shmuel Hanavi dying. And David asks for some food for his men, and he completely shuns and disregards the existence of David HaMelech. A lot of chutzpah. So, and David then gets his men together with the intention of, he's morid b'malchus with killing Naval. Abigail intervenes. She goes b'seiser hahar, secretly, to go speak to him, and she gives him 3 points that she makes to him, in which she convinces him not to do this or do his anger. And really, this is very bad for you. It would look bad for you. Number one, don't waste your time with this oisvarf. It's not necessary. He's unworthy. It'd be unbecoming to you. And, maybe technically you're not the king yet because you're not sitting in the throne, even though, we know that he was anointed as a king, but you're not there yet. And maybe since you're not there yet, maybe it's not really Moed B'Malchus. I want to learn with everyone today a Gemara in Maseches Megillah, which elaborates on this story. And what's very cool about Sefaria, I don't know if you're watching my screen, but you can just click on a pasuk, and it will tell you every single time this pasuk is quoted in the Gemara. And you click on it, and bam, here it is. It's unbelievable, right? This is a very, very amazing tool that the Jewish people have. So what's the context of this Gemara? The context of this Gemara is that the Gemara writes that there are 7 Nevios, Shiva Nevios, and the Gemara names them Chana, Abigail, Sarah. It goes through a list, a list of the names of the Nevios, and then it says, prove it to me. Where do we see Nevuah in Tanakh, in their narrative? So the Gemara begins with it doesn't begin with Abigail, but we're up to Abigail. Abigail, how do you know that Abigail? So Vahayat hi rocheves ala chamor v'yoredes b'seiser hahar. She is riding on her donkey, and she goes literally means through a secret passageway through the mountain to get to David in a quicker way. B'seiser hahar, in the secret of the mountain. Minahar, it should be a secret from within the mountain itself, not the secret mountain. So says the Gemara that what was really happening here was that she brought a bedika cloth. She brought a hilchos nida shaila to David HaMelech. Amar Rabbi Rishmol ha'liskei dam haba min astarim. Natzla dam v'harasa lo. She brought this bedika cloth to David HaMelech and said, is this kosher? Is this tameh, or is this mareh tahor? And David HaMelech said to her, listen, lady Abigail, it's nighttime. At nighttime, we don't look at maros. We only look at them during the day. That's halacha, except in extreme circumstances, but really because we have light today, but even the light that we have inside our homes can distort the colorization of a bedika cloth. Therefore, we don't look at it. We look at it during the day. So I'll take it with me. Maybe you'll come back to me tomorrow, but I can't really answer the question on this right now. So listen to what she says to him. She said, I set you up. So she said to him, do we judge capital punishments at night, and you're and this is what you're doing. You're saying to me you can't judge Mares at night, okay? But you also can't adjudicate capital crime cases at night. So he says to her, Mori v'malchus, your husband's rebellious against the throne, v'lo tzarech l'midaina. He doesn't need a judgment because he is rebellious, and that is fundamentally different. Amr lo, adayin sha'ol kayim, lo yatsa tivacha ba'olam. Sha'ol is still around. You're not yet the king. Amr la, baruch tamech ubrucha at. Blessed are your reasonings. Blessed are you. Asher kilisani hayom hazeh mi bo b'damim, that you prevented me from bringing blood unwarranted on somebody else. So she says, Shkoyach, thank you so much for doing this, David says, and she stops, right, him from taking Nava's life at this point. Okay? And Gemara made side point over here. Then the Gemara says, Haisa. Then Gemara just continues about every single word that she said was really had much deeper meaning in the conversation. V'haisa nefesh adoni tzura b'sura chayim. She says to him, your life should be bound in the bonds of life, meaning Shaul's coming to kill you, and Hashem should give you strength. Ki havas miftara minei, heitiv Hashem laduni v'zacharta es hamasecha, and when Hashem should give you good things, and you shouldn't forget me. Okay, we'll get to that soon, what exactly that means. You shouldn't forget me. But here Rav Nachman says, oh, this is what they say about women. Itisa bahadeshusa pilcha. When a woman is engaged in conversation, she's also holding the spindle. What that means is that women are able to look 10 steps ahead. She's saying something now about him, don't forget me. What do you mean, don't forget me? We're talking about Naval here. We're talking about your kingdom, David HaMelech. But she's thinking, Naval might die in the future. Don't forget about Abigail. They had clearly a connection here, which couldn't go further at this point, but we will see that that will at a certain point. Okay, so David withholds and really agrees and acquiesces to Abigail's request and to her plea that it's not worth it to go near him at all. Okay, so let's see this inside. 32. Pasuk Lamed Beis. Vayomer David Abigail, Baruch Hashem Elokei Yisrael, Asher Shilachacha Hayom Hazel Likrasi. Thank you, Hashem, for bringing you to me. Ubarach Tamech Ubrucha At, Asher Kilisani Hayom Hazeh Mibo Bevdamim, V'Hoshea Yadi Lo. You saved me from bringing blood to me, and you have saved myself as well. Does anybody have a question? Or that was a Zoom thing. Ulam Chai Hashem Elokei Yisrael. Asher min ani mehara usach kilule miharta v'tavotza lekarsi. Thank you that you rushed here really quickly. Ki nosa lenavel ad or haboker mashtin bakir. If you did not come quickly enough, I would have. Your son would have been left completely. Your husband would have been left completely for the dogs. Vayikach David miyada. Okay, now we learned already on Friday. Vayikach David miyada ace asher havia li. David now takes the food that she brought for him. V'la amar ali l'shalom lebeisech. She then said to him, you should go back to your home safely. R'i shamata b'kolech v'asa panayich. See, I have heeded your plea and respected your wish. So David accepts it and says to her, now you can go home safely. And you should know that I am not going to do anything. You've completely stopped me in my tracks. And Vasa Panayech, and I will show you grace. So the Abar Binel writes here what that means is, I am going to consider your advice even in the future. Whenever I make a decision or render a decision about somebody being born b'malchus, you are right. I need to take more time to render that decision. It shouldn't be done immediately. The Malbim says here that what Avigail did was really out of context, out of, I would say, regular conduct in the time that they were living in. And what was amazing is that Avigail did it. She had the confidence to go up to David. Can't imagine that happened so often, unannounced. Not that there was protocol, but just typically a woman wasn't asking a man. Shiloh's, I assume, in this fashion in the middle of the night, and she did. And David says, "I'm not going to consider this disrespectful because I think what you did was very much on par and appropriate, especially in this situation." But Tavo Avigail El Naval. Avigail goes to Naval. Vihine lo, right? And now put yourself in Avigail's shoes. And Avigail just saved Naval's life. That's pretty amazing. And like her husband is going to be completely clueless about this. Vihine lo mishteh bebeso ki mishteh hamelach. He is partying like it's 1999. He's partying like nobody's business. The Lev Naval Tov Alav, and he is drunk. He's drinking. He is with all of his people, and his wife is like coming back. Who shiker ad ma'od? Like, how often do we say this language? He's very very drunk. V'lo hegidalo davar katon v'gadol ad haraboker. She didn't say anything to him until the morning. And she was able to understand the situation, that there was nothing to do here. And in fact, you could even argue that if she would tell her husband what David was going to do and how she stopped him, what was likely to happen? He was drunk. He could have taken his men and then launched an attack on David. So she knew that that wasn't smart and that wasn't worth it. So I'm not going to do that. But he baboker, and the context is just so stark. Shmuel just died. The Jewish people are in a time period of mourning, and he's partying and he's drunk, losing all inhibitions. When in the morning, when the wine leaves Naval's body, meaning he's back to normal. She shares all of this with him. No, what do you think is going to happen? She shares all of this with him. Vayamas libo bekirbo. He dies. He dies immediately upon hearing this. V'hu hayal even, and it was like he was stoned. Now, what was so distressing about this news that she died? He died right away. Rashi says, "Vayamas libo, shenitztaer al hamincha shehuvas leDavid." What was so bad? Oh my gosh, I almost got killed. And that was so shocking. I don't know. That's maybe what I would have thought. That you gave all this food to David HaMelech. You gave all of my food to David? That caused him to have a heart attack and die. Yamas libo bekirbo. His heart died. His heart stopped. Right? The Radak says the same exact thing. That it was this part. He was so stingy. He was so stingy. Right? Others have explained that okay, it was that he was so afraid of David that he died. But knowing Nava a little bit, you could understand this. Vayiki asaras hayamim, vayigov Hashem es Nava vayamos. So now, wait a minute. Didn't he just die over here? Vayamas libo bekir, his heart stopped and he died. And now, 10 days later, Hashem takes his life and he dies. Mepharshim say is that he like stopped moving, but he wasn't fully dead. He was like in a state of we call it a goses. He was near death for 10 days. Then 10 days later, he died completely. Now, why did Hashem do this? Why did he wait 10 days? So Rashi here gives us several different interpretations as to why he waited. The first is that they waited for the 7 days of Avelos of Shmuel Hanavi to be over. And once the days of mourning for Shmuel were over, then he died. Less people focus on his death versus Shmuel's. This is very similar that, sometimes Hashem does that. Metushelach, that we postpone the Mabul for 7 days because Metushelach died. And those two things should not overlap. Number two, these 10 days were the Aseres Yimei Tshuva. They were the Aseres Yimei Tshuva, and the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah writes this, that it was Rosh Hashanah when this happened, and then on Yom Kippur, or the day after Yom Kippur, he died. Why? Hashem gave him 10 days to do Tshuva. I'm not going to take your life right away, but let's wait a little bit before. And the most simple interpretation is that this was he deserved to not die right away, and he deserved to be in pain before he died. That's the Radak's interpretation, that he was specific over here because he deserved to not die right away. Sometimes it's a bracha when people die immediately and don't have to suffer. Vayishma David kimes naval. David hears this. Vayomer bracha Hashem asher rav as riv cherpasi. Thank you, Hashem, blessed Hashem, for fighting my fights and fighting my degradation, my embarrassment. Miyad naval. That's avdo chashach me'ra'ah. And he withheld food from your servant. That's ras naval. Yeshiv Hashem barosho. V'yishlach David v'daber b'Abigail l'chachto l'lisha. Then what did David do? He sent men to Abigail to bring Abigail in to marry her, to marry Abigail at this time. So it is not clear in the Psukim, but the Gemara in Yevamos teaches us that one is not allowed to marry a divorcee or an almana until 3 months later. Why is that? Because if they have a child right away, we won't know who the child was from. She becomes pregnant right away, whether it's from the previous husband or from the current husband. Therefore, they waited. Where do you see this from? So if you look at the next pasuk, you'll see an inconsistency. Vayavo avdei David al Abigail Carmela. They go, he sent servants to Abigail in Carmel. Vayidabru elaha lemor, David shlachanu elayach. V'kachtech lo lisha. We came to you to bring you as a wife for David. Right? That's what Abigail meant when Abigail said, don't forget about me. Don't forget about me, because if things work out, then there might be like a future with the two of us. But Takam Bateshtehu Apayim Arza, she immediately bowed to the ground in front of these servants. Vatomer Hinei Amasecha Lishifcha, Lerchotz Raglei Avdei Oduni. I am available to go and to I'm available to go and to come to your, to help to go to David. Yes. My answer is yes, I will marry David. So and then she went. But Timaher, but Takam Abigail Tikrova Alachamor. So she goes and she goes on her donkey. Chamesh Narastaha Hochos Laragla, and with 5 women come to her. David, she followed the messengers and she became his wife. So if you notice over here, the Medrash writes, the pasuk says Vayidaber ba'Avigail, which sounds like he spoke about Avigail, right? Which means that he asked a question whether he's allowed to marry Abigail at this time. And the answer was not yet. You have to wait. That's what the Medrash says. Ba'Avigail, he asked about the ability to marry her. And the answer was no, you have to wait. Okay. And she marries him. Mazel Tov, David gets married. So David's married to whom? Now, how many wives does he have? I think everyone. Two. Michal and
Abigail.
Good. So now here's number 3. That's Achinoam lakach David mi Yisrael, v'tiena gam shtehem lo l'nashim. Right. So now he married a third wife. Her name is Achinoam. We're not going to really know much about her. Okay. We don't know much about her, but really this is meant to be here because of the next pasuk. And this is very much part of Shaul's treachery. This is like the end of a parak and like drops a bomb. V'Shaul nasanes Michal bito eshes David. Shaul brought his wife, his daughter Michal, eshes David, the wife of David, and he gave her to somebody else, to a different man. Falti ben Laish asher migalim. Falti ben Laish lived in a city called Galim, and he brought her to marry him. And I would say the pshat of this is very simple, that this was done very much in a conniving way, in a treacherous way, in a painful way on both sides. If this gets back to David very much loved Michal, and Michal was like head over heels for David. The Gemara here learns out that they had a machlokas, David and Shaul, about the status of Michal's marriage, because Michal said, "We're going to get married." They were going to get married, but only for a certain, only if you brought me a certain amount of dead plishti bodies, and maybe the marriage wasn't a real marriage, and they had an argument about this. We should know the Gemara writes that Palti ben Laish was a very good guy, and while Shaul forced them to live together, he put a sword in the middle of their bed, and they would not be allowed to cross over the other side of the bed or in the room to prevent them from actually being together, because Palti very much understood what was happening here behind the scenes, whether he disagreed halachically with Shaul or he politically, either way, this is not something that was going to, he felt comfortable with. We will see how this will play out later on. This story with Shaul and Michal and David and Palti is not yet over, but the Navi's dropping this here, and we will see more about this in the beginning of Shmuel days. Okay, with that, we finished Parachaf Hey. Maybe next week we begin talking about a Siyam, because we really have 4 prakim left. The last chapter is chapter 31, 5 prakim left. So maybe, Mendy, talk whenever about what we could do to celebrate finishing Shmuel Aleph. Okay.
Thank you.
A wonderful.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a great day.